Okay, think about this. Remember the last time you felt like just pure singular joy?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was finally getting that super complex idea at work. Or, I don't know, maybe it was that insane rush when you saw, say, Blackpink hit the
Oh,
stage.
yeah, that feeling.
That specific sensation, that subjective first person, what it's like to be you in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually like the biggest unsolved mystery in the universe.
It really is. It's how matter creates mind. And today we're doing a deep dive into the literature all around consciousness, trying to synthesize centuries of philosophy with, the cutting edge of neuroscience.
Right. And our mission today, to really understand the core challenges and the leading theories trying to explain that feeling.
Exactly. The word itself, consciousness, it comes from Latin, con and sicare, means
Right.
to know with.
Okay. But the key idea, the one that really sticks from modern philosophy, comes from Thomas Nagel, right? It's not just knowing, it's the subjective first-person experience, that thing that makes each moment unique for you.
That's the heart of it. And when we talk about consciousness, we got to split it up a bit. There's its dual nature. First, you've got wakefulness.
Like just being switched on, arousal, responsiveness.
Pretty much. The basic level. You obviously need that to be conscious at all.
Right. Light bulb on versus off. Simple enough.
But then there's awareness. That's the actual content of your experience. What are you focused on right now? Is it the complexity of this idea? Or, the lyrics to the latest Taylor Swift song playing in your head?
Huh, yeah. You can be awake, but kind of zone out, right? Like driving on autopilot.
Precisely. And we're diving into that rich awareness part today because that's where the real mystery, the conflict, lies.
And that conflict, yeah, that fundamental question. David Chalmers framed it perfectly, didn't he? He split the whole field, the easy problems and the hard problem. Okay, let's start easy. Or easy.
Right, the easy problems. Now, they aren't actually trivial, not easy like that. They're just the functional bits, the things we think we can eventually explain mechanistically, objectively.
Like how the brain tells things apart, or focuses attention, or uses language to say, I feel happy.
Exactly. Discrimination, attention, reportability, behavior. Neuroscientists are making progress here, slowly but surely figuring out the brain mechanisms.
Okay, but then, boom, we hit the wall. The hard problem.
The hard problem, yeah. This is the big one. Explaining why and how all that physical stuff, neurons firing, chemicals washing around, why does that give rise to subjective experience? Why does it feel like anything at all from the inside?
It boils down to qualia, right? That's the term.
Qualia, yes. Those intrinsic qualitative properties, like the specific redness of red, or the particular sting of jealousy, or, yeah, that unique sound of a drum beat in a BTS track that just hits differently. They're fundamentally private.
So, like, if you and I are both listening to the same song, we're processing the same sound waves objectively, but the subjective qual, the actual experience of the sound, the emotion, does it feel the exact same way to you as it does to me?
And we have absolutely no way to measure that directly. No instrument for first-person feeling.
And that's the gap. The canyon between objective brain data, the neurons firing, and the subjective feeling, like joy or seeing red. That's the explanatory gap.
Spot on. Even if some future scientist could map every single neuron firing in your brain while you listen to that song, they'd still have to ask, okay, but why is all this functioning accompanied by an experience?
Wow. So if the brain is just physical stuff, fats, proteins, water, how does it conjure up something that feels so non-physical, like that weird pang of nostalgia from an old song?
Huh?
That existential question, that's basically what defines the big philosophical camps trying to crack this, right? Three main ones.
That's right. And the majority view, at least in neuroscience circles, is materialism, or sometimes called physicalism.
Okay. And that basically says consciousness is physical. It's all just brain processes, nothing more.
Essentially, yes. It's rooted entirely in brain activity. I mean, if you accept the laws of physics as we know them, it's kind of the most straightforward answer. Parsimonious.
And the big argument for it is the causal argument.
That's a strong one. Think about it. If your conscious experiences have physical effects, like you consciously decide to buy concert tickets, and then your body physically does it.
Right. Clicking the mouse, typing.
Is that...
Physical actions.
Exactly. And if all physical effects must have physical causes, that's the principle of causal closure, then your conscious decision must have been physical in the first place.
So consciousness can't be some separate, non-physical ghost pulling the brain's levers.
That's the materialist view. But here's where they struggle. If it's just physical processes, how do you explain the immense phenomenal difference between, say, smelling coffee and a machine simply detecting certain airborne molecules? The function might be similar, but the feeling.
Yeah, the causal argument explains the how of the action, maybe, but does it really capture the what it's like, that subjective quality?
That's the challenge. It's a tough spot for pure materialism, which, naturally, leads some people to jump ship to dualism.
Okay, dualism. So they do think consciousness is non-physical.
Fundamentally, yes. They'd say it's not reducible to just physical stuff, even though it clearly depends on the brain functioning. They might talk about non-physical properties or even a non-physical substance, like a soul.
That sounds intuitive, actually. That kind of matches how experience feels different from just matter. But then you hit that classic problem.
The interaction problem,
Yeah.
exactly. How does this non-physical mind, this ghost, actually interact with the physical brain? How does it push the neurons around?
Right. The ghost in the machine. How does a ghost flip a switch? It's a major hurdle.
Hmm.
Which brings us to the third way, kind of a middle path, panpsychism.
Panpsychism, yeah. It's been getting more attention lately, partly because it tries to sidestep that interaction problem while still taking subjectivity seriously.
Okay, so what's the core idea there?
The core idea is, well, pretty radical. It's that consciousness isn't something that just emerges in complex brains like ours. It's a fundamental feature of reality itself. Ubiquitous.
Wait, so everything has some consciousness? Like
Ugh.
down to an electron?
That's the proposal. That all matter possesses some incredibly basic, maybe infinitesimal form of proto-conscious experience.
And our complex human consciousness is just, what? A combination of all those tiny bits.
That's the general idea, yeah. Our sophisticated awareness arises from the combination or aggregation of these fundamental micro-experiences in complex systems like brains.
Huh. Okay, that definitely avoids the interaction problem, but
Ah.
it sounds like it creates a whole new problem. How do all those tiny consciousnesses combine?
Bingo! That's the combination problem. It's the massive challenge for panpsychism. How do these countless tiny individual points of view, the proto-consciousness of this neuron and that one somehow merge or bind together into one single unified stream of experience, like your unified experience right now?
Yeah, how does the consciousness of my left toe and the consciousness of my right earlobe suddenly become my overall feeling of being me? That seems really hard to explain.
It's conceptually very, very difficult, a major hurdle.
Okay, so let's step back from the philosophy for a sec and jump back into the lab. If we assume for a moment that consciousness is physical, like the materialists say, what are the actual scientific theories trying to explain how the brain pulls this off? How does it create that unified feeling?
All right, yeah, let's look at the leading mechanistic models. We've got, I'd say, three big hitters here. First up is Global Workspace Theory, or GWT, often linked with Bernard Burr's.
Global Workspace. Okay, I think I've heard of this one. It uses a theater analogy.
That's the one. The brain is like a theater. Consciousness is the bright spotlight of attention shining on the stage. Whatever information is in that spotlight, a sight, a sound, a thought, a feeling, becomes globally available. It's broadcast out to all the different specialist systems in the brain, the audience members.
So consciousness isn't stuck in one place. It's about this widespread broadcasting. And those arousal systems we mentioned earlier, they're like the power source for the spotlight.
Precisely. GWT really emphasizes those foundational networks, upper brainstem, thalamus, basal forebrain. They provide the on switch, the energy, the wakefulness, but the actual content of your awareness is whatever information wins the competition to get into that global workspace, into that spotlight.
Okay, that makes sense. Broadcast information. What's next?
Next, we have probably the most mathematically formalized theory, Integrated Information Theory, or IIT. This one's championed by Giulio Tononi.
Integrated information, IIT, right. This one involves a quantity, right? Volume.
Exactly. Fi-fi. IIT proposes that consciousness isn't just about broadcasting information, it's about the system's capacity to integrate information. Subjective experience, IoT claims, is essentially identical to the amount of integrated information a system generates.
Okay, integrated information. Can you break that down a bit? What does high integration mean in practice?
Sure. Think about something simple, like a single photodiode. It can detect light or not. Very little integration, very low-eyed. Now think about a complex system like, say, the human cerebral cortex. It has billions of neurons, intricately connected. The state of the whole system tells you vastly more than just summing up the states of individual neurons if they were disconnected.
Ah, okay. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, informationally speaking.
Exactly. IIT says consciousness correlates with systems that are both highly differentiated, they can be in a vast number of different states, and IANG highly integrated, the parts are causally interconnected and work together. That's why researchers often focus on areas like the posterior cortical hot zone back of the brain, temporal, parietal, occipital regions.
Why there specifically?
Because neuroimaging studies suggest that's where you find the highest levels of this kind of complex integrated activity that seems necessary for conscious content, for awareness.
Got it. High complexity, high integration, potentially high consciousness, hi-fi. Okay, third big theory.
The third one is Attention Schema Theory, or AST, from Michael Graziano. This one is, well, maybe the most counterintuitive for some people, pragmatic maybe.
Attention schema. Okay, what's the schema part?
AST argues that consciousness isn't some deep mystery juice. It's simply the brain's internal model of its own process of attention.
Wait, a model? Like how the brain models my arm's position so I can grab something?
Exactly like that. Your brain builds a simplified body schema to control your limbs without needing to know every muscle fiber's tension. Graziano argues it does the same for attention. It builds an attention schema, a simplified model of what attention is doing where it's focused.
Okay, so how does that become the feeling of consciousness?
Here's the twist. Because this internal model, this schema, is simplified, it strips out all the messy underlying mechanics of neurons firing and circuits competing. It ends up depicting attention as this sort of entity, something that seems to have non-physical properties, a kind of direct awareness.
And the brain essentially believes its own model. It reports this simplified, seemingly non-physical model as the feeling of consciousness.
That's the core idea of AST. So that intense joy you felt at the concert, according to AST, that wasn't some irreducible magic. It was your brain efficiently modeling its own state of highly focused attention and arousal, and that model feels like subjective awareness.
So the brain is basically tricking itself, creating an illusion of a soul or a ghost in the machine for computational efficiency.
From the AST perspective, yes, it's a functional illusion, very different from dualism, where the ghost is proposed to be real and non-physical. Here, the feeling of a ghost is a useful physical construct.
Wow. Okay, those are three very different takes on the mechanism. How do scientists actually try to test these ideas? It can't just be philosophical debate anymore.
Oh, absolutely not. The methods are getting really sophisticated. A key approach is contrastive analysis.
Contrastive, meaning you compare things.
Right. You set up experiments where two situations are almost identical, but in one, the person is consciously aware of a stimulus, and in the other, they're not. Then you look for the differences in brain activity using tools like fMRI, EEG, MEG, what lights up only when consciousness is present.
Clever. Isolating the difference.
Exactly. And researchers are also using no-report paradigms. This is important because sometimes the act of reporting your experience, yes, I saw the flash, itself involves brain processes that could contaminate the results.
Ah, so you want to measure awareness without needing the person to say they're aware. How?
You use other measures, maybe their pupil dilation or subtle physiological responses or specific brain signatures detected by EEG that correlate with awareness even if they don't explicitly push a button or speak. It helps remove that reporting confound.
That makes sense. And has this research given us insight into like the timing of consciousness? Does it just appear instantly?
Not at all. Research, for instance, by Dehane and others, suggests it's a sequence. There's often described a kind of four-phase framework after a sensory input. First, the stimulus is simply detected unconsciously.
Okay.
Then, if it's strong enough or attended to, there's a pulse, a big surge of neuromodulation, amplifying the signal across the brain, sort of like ignition.
Ignition, I like that. Then what?
Third, there's often a switch the brain actively suppresses or deactivates networks that might interfere. It clears the stage, so to speak.
Makes way for the main act.
Right. And finally, fourth, you get the wave sequential processing across large-scale cortical areas, especially that posterior hot zone, which creates the stable, conscious percept. The actual experience unfolds over time.
So consciousness isn't instantaneous. It takes time for the signal to get amplified, broadcast, integrated, whatever the correct mechanism turns out to be.
Precisely. It takes hundreds of milliseconds for a full conscious experience to crystallize.
Okay, before we wrap up the theories, we kind of have to mention the elephant in the room, or maybe the quantum fluctuation in the room. OR.
Ah, yes. Orchestrated objective reduction, the theory from Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. It proposes that consciousness doesn't arise from classical neuron firing, but from quantum processes happening inside tiny structures within neurons called microtubules.
Quantum consciousness. It sounds very dramatic. and futuristic.
It's definitely ambitious, linking the weirdness of quantum mechanics directly to subjective experience. But, and this is a big but,
It's not widely accepted.
not really, no. The vast majority of neuroscientists are pretty skeptical. The main criticism is that the brain is generally considered far too warm, wet, and noisy an environment to sustain the delicate quantum coherence needed for ORCH-R to work as proposed. Quantum effects usually get washed out very quickly at biological temperatures.
So most researchers are sticking with classical electrochemical explanations for now.
For the most part, yes. While quantum effects happen everywhere, the consensus is that probably don't play a specific functional role in generating consciousness at the level ORCH-R suggests.
Okay, good to clarify. So we've covered a lot. The hard problem, the big philosophies, materialism, dualism, panpsychism, and three major scientific theories: GWT, IIT, AST. If someone's trying to get a handle on this field, what are the absolute key takeaways?
I'd say three main things stand out from current research. First, consciousness isn't in one spot. It involves large-scale, distributed brain networks working together. No single consciousness center.
Okay, widespread networks. Got it.
Second, conscious processing seems nonlinear. It often behaves more like a switch flipping on, reaching a threshold, rather than a smooth dimmer switch gradually increasing. There's often an all-or-nothing quality to becoming aware of something.
Threshold effect. Okay. And third?
Third, the current weight of evidence leans towards something called weak emergence. This means consciousness seems to arise naturally from the sheer complexity and intricate interactions of biological stuff, our neurons.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to require fundamentally new, non-physical forces or substances beyond the complexity itself.
So complex biology is probably enough. We don't necessarily need physics-breaking additions.
That's where much of the field is focused, yes. Understanding that biological complexity.
And this isn't just navel-gazing, right? This research has real-world impact.
Hugely important, especially in clinical settings. Think about patients with severe brain injuries and comas, vegetative states, or minimally conscious states.
Right. How do you know if someone is aware if they can't respond?
Exactly. Using neuroimaging like fMRI or EEG, combined with clever paradigms based on these theories, doctors can sometimes detect signs of covert consciousness, evidence of awareness hidden behind a non-responsive body.
Wow. Finding that must change everything.
It absolutely can. It has profound implications for diagnosis, prognosis, ethical decisions, treatment plans. Knowing if there's someone home matters immensely.
So the science has really moved into rigorous empirical territory with massive stakes.
Definitely. But as we get better at understanding the brain and as we build more and more sophisticated artificial intelligence...
Uh-oh, here comes the AI question.
Well, yeah. If we build AI systems that can perfectly mimic all the functional aspects of human intelligence, maybe even model their own attention, like Graziano's AST suggests, we run right back into that combination problem, or a version of it.
Meaning, even if an AI acts perfectly conscious, passes every test we throw at it.
How would we ever truly know if it feels like anything to be that machine? Is there an actual subjective experience inside, or is it just incredible sophisticated mimicry?
The ultimate philosophical zombie problem applied to AI. What's the difference between an AI that acts conscious and one that truly is aware?
That's the question we'll leave you with today. Something to ponder, maybe the next time you experience something amazing, like that incredible new track dropping. Is your feeling just complex processing or something more? And could a machine ever truly share it?